Welcome to my first ever long form YouTube video. This has been a while in the making. I am super excited to finally be putting it out. And today, our topic is cults. Are you sure you would never? I'm Mama Shroom, and you are watching Shrooms for Thought, the latest and greatest YouTube channel on the block. If you would, drop a like, drop a comment, and maybe even subscribe if you're feeling like it. I need all the support I can get because I am brand new and I'm filming on an iPhone. So any help towards getting a camera would be much appreciated. Let's get into it. Okay, so cults are something that have fascinated not only me, but many people for a long time. Pretty much every society and every time period has had some kind of a cult, and it continues to this day. Whether the cult centers on religion, science, aliens, doesn't matter what, the cult mentality and how people get into a cult has always fascinated me. But at the same time, one of the phrases that I always hear when I end up talking with people about cults is something along the lines of, I would never do that, or I can't believe those people did that, which is a valid thing to say, but we have to keep in mind that we are not them. So today, I want to dive into the mentality of somebody who joins a cult and how they let it get as far as it does. So to really get inside the mind of somebody who joins a cult, we're going to hone in on a specific cult, which is going to be today, the Jim Jones and the People's Temple, a super popular one. Now, if you don't know what that is, click off this video, go find a documentary, watch it. There are some really good ones out there. Call Me Chris does a really good one. There's also one up on Netflix right now that I really enjoyed watching. Very informative, kind of terrifying, but really good. Now, Jim Jones and the People's Temple, this was started around the 60s, and during the 60s, we have to remember that segregation was still a huge issue, especially in America. A lot of the people who joined the Jim Jones cult were heavily segregated and marginalized people, and we have to remember that at the time, nobody was calling it a cult. They were calling it a church, and that's just what it was in the beginning. Jim Jones was one of the only pastors at the time who was preaching equality for men, women, people of color, and other marginalized folks. Nobody at this time was doing that, and that was the draw for so many folks. These people were lonely, these people were scared, these people were insecure, these people didn't know where to go. So when they found such an accepting community, of course they wanted in. It's easy to sit on this side of history and look back and say, I would never do that. I can't believe those people did that. But what you have to remember is that these people thought they were joining a church. The word cult was not thrown around in the early days of Jim Jones and the People's Temple. All these people have now moved to Guyana, and we have to remember that they are completely cut off from the United States. There's no emails, there's no texts, there's no calls, there's hardly letters, and if there are, they're being opened and read by Jim Jones and his people before they go back to the States. This was on purpose. The isolation from the United States made it easy to spread whatever messages and propaganda they wanted to back in Guyana. In fact, the people in Guyana were being told by Jim Jones that back in America, segregation had only gotten worse, and that going back to America now would be just as dangerous as living there 50 years ago. This must have been horrifying to hear as people of color or marginalized people who knew back in the States was already rough. Hearing that it was that much worse, why wouldn't you want to stay in Guyana where things were different? So by the time Congressman Ryan was coming with a whole group of people to figure out what was going on in Jonestown because of the concerned relatives back in the States, no wonder they were scared. Jim Jones was telling them constantly, day and night, that these people were coming to attack them, that these people were coming to kill them. It would be scary for anyone, but especially for people who had spent the last however many months, if not years, hearing that America was nothing but a racist, segregating country, and all they wanted to do was come in and ruin what they had built here in Guyana. So when it all came down to it, and Kool-Aid was passed around the night of the massacre, some people drank it. And some people today can look back at those people and not understand, and judge, and say, why on earth would they do that? I would never do that. You would never do that if a stranger walked up to you on the street and said, here, drink this, it's got cyanide in it. You wouldn't do that then. But place yourself in the mentality of the people who have been living in Guyana for so long and hearing the things that they were hearing about the United States. Think about how they would feel of knowing that now people from the United States were coming supposedly to kill them. They had no way to fact check this. They had no references. They were totally and completely isolated from everything back in the States. In fact, when the Jonestown survivors came back, they were almost as isolated and marginalized in the States as they had been before, simply because of their connections to Jim Jones. We think of those people now as pure victims, but back in the 60s and 70s when they were returning home, they were seen as dangerous, potentially even criminals, and not to be trusted. We have a much wider and larger understanding of cults and how they work and their victims. But back in the 60s, people didn't understand that. So folks even went through the process of changing their names and hiding their entire identities to escape from the fact that they were tortured and victimized in Jonestown. It's a real and very terrifying situation, and there are still cults going on around the world in places that we see as civilized countries. The sunk cost fallacy may have factored in as well. The idea that it's taken too long for me to build this, so why would I leave now? They had moved to a completely different country, had given all their money to Jim Jones, had changed their identity, had completely separated from who they used to be. Thinking about going back and trying to rebuild a life in America must have been terrifying. So yes, some people drank the Kool-Aid. More people than not, it was injected. It's called a massacre instead of a suicide now for a reason. But some people drank it. And I don't believe that on this side of history we have any right to judge them. So I'll ask you one more time. Are you sure you wouldn't? Okay, I just filmed my first YouTube video. I am over the moon excited. I really hope that the editing turns out okay. I've never edited a full YouTube video, so we'll see. Thank you so much for watching to the end. I literally cannot say how much I appreciate that. If you enjoyed this video, again, I would love to see you comment. I would love to see that little like pop up, and a subscribe would mean literally everything to me. So I only have, I think as of right now, 8 subscribers. My goal is, I think by my birthday, I want to have 100. So I'm going to shoot for 100 by August 10th. So if you can help get me there at all, that would be absolutely wonderful and amazing. But welcome to the Shroomy community. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'm gonna go edit this YouTube video.